What is going on, FA Nation? Jon Impemba here with Dan Servodidio, bringing you FA Sports Talk. Dan, it's been a little bit since we last chatted, but the NFL draft has come and gone. Gave us all a little bit to pay attention to during the quarantine. I know you dove headfirst into that. One, how you handling the quarantine right now? How you handling the pandemic with everything? How you feeling about it all?
Doing good. Yeah, I mean the draft gave us something to talk about and watch for sure, and then we had the NFL schedule come out. Just more sports to talk about. I've been watching some KBO, so that's that early mornings, but filling the time of live sports and so. But yeah, I mean hanging in there as we all are here, and just waiting for the next episodes of The Last Dance too.
Yeah, everything that's going on with TV as well. It's all pretty crazy. The Michael Jordan documentary is probably like one of the most watched things at this point. Everybody can't wait for it to come on. I myself have only seen bits and pieces of it, even though I am a big diehard, basketball fan. I've only caught really the Twitter, cliff notes that have been posted across my screen. So I'll probably have to eventually sit down and kill some time to do all of that. But you were really, the head of our draft coverage there. You did the pick-by-pick analysis. Now that the draft has come and gone, what are some of your favorite picks that you saw, for landing spots of players?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing going in was where these receivers would go, and especially, in the first round for sure, because we had a ton of talent, a loaded wide receiver class, but it was just wondering which teams would actually make that dive and maybe some teams moving up or moving down. And right off the bat, I mean, the Justin Jefferson going to Minnesota, I mean, he's basically a direct replacement of Stephon Diggs. Right. So I think if you're thinking immediate fantasy value for this season, I think he definitely is atop the list for me for the rookies, because if you look at the other guys that went in the first round, it's little uncertain quarterback situations. The offenses aren't proven yet, but the Vikings are going to have Jefferson being the number 2 guy right next to Thielen, and in an offense that's pretty balanced with Cook there too. So I really like where Jefferson landed there.
Yeah, he was one of my favorite guys too. I've kind of already pegged him as a rookie receiver that's going to probably move in and at least have immediate opportunity, as you mentioned. Now, obviously, Jerry Jeudy's going to have that opportunity as well as a number 2 receiver off of Cortland Sutton and that revamped Broncos offense there. But we had Henry Ruggs go to the Raiders. He can be the number 1 receiver there right off the bat. I mean, Tyrell Williams, the talent could be there as a downfield threat. We saw Hunter Renfrow obviously emerge towards the end of the year last year as a good slot option for Derek Carr in that offense. What's your take with Ruggs now, potentially taking over there in Oakland or Las Vegas now, I guess?
Yeah. Well, so the opportunity is definitely there for him, as you mentioned, because they just don't have a lot of talent there in the receiving core. But the thing I'm worrying about is just, how this offense is going to be. I see it relying more on Josh Jacobs in the running game. And the fact that they bring, I know people knock Marcus Mariota, but the fact that they bring in another quarterback to kind of push Derek Carr, or maybe they don't trust Derek Carr, and either him or Mariota behind center, it's not making me really excited for pass catchers in Oakland. I mean, outside of Darren Waller. So, but Ruggs, I mean, the talent is for sure there, and he could go off this season. It might take a year or two to see if they can get another proven guy in there with him. I just, Tyrell Williams is what he is. He's just a deep ball threat.
Yeah. Yep. 3 for 80. That's Tyrell Williams.
But Ruggs, I mean, for PPR this season, he's probably going to catch a ton of passes. So
yeah, I like him a little bit. You talk about guys with speed. An immediate comparison given size. You see Tyreek Hill now. Obviously, they don't have the explosive player at quarterback at Patrick Mahomes. But if they get Ruggs in a little bit of space, he has potential gains to just break it open once he catches the ball for big play upside. So in best balls, I've been finding myself taking Ruggs. I think there's just some weeks where he could have 165 yards and a couple scores just because of that breakaway speed. So in best ball drafts, Ruggs is someone that I've certainly taken a look at here. The other top receiver, I mentioned Jerry Jeudy already. CeeDee Lamb probably goes into the messiest situation of the group. Going there with Dallas, they have Cooper, they have Gallup. Obviously, they have the running back there, and Elliott. Really where the offense is largely focused on. Despite maybe being the best talent in the draft, he's maybe in the worst situation.
Yeah, especially for this season, because I mean, I just don't know how many receptions he's going to get overall this whole season, let alone yards, touchdowns. Because if you think about it, when they're in the red zone, it's Zeke, this is the first option ideally. Amari Cooper, Blake Jarwin at tight end, and Gallup. I mean, eventually maybe Lamb takes over Gallup's role in there, but they're paying all these guys. They're paying Zeke, they're paying Cooper right now. I mean, those would be the guys' number one options in the red zone. So I mean, touchdowns is tough to bank on for receivers there, and let alone just the whole catch share and receptions,
Right.
Yardage in that offense. And it's I mentioned Zeke. I mean, this offense is going to be using a lot of Zeke. So
especially down in the red zone, they're going to pop in there. So. This was a draft that had 5 wide receivers taken in the first round. Another one of them was your Eagles, Jalen Reagor. Where do you think he fits in? I mean, obviously Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson's there. They have Arcega-Whiteside that they took last year. Is Reagor someone that you expect comes in and makes an immediate impact, or do you think he's sort of down on the depth chart with the potential to move up just due to the injury history of the people in front of him?
Yeah, I mean, what the Eagles did this draft and the offseason was just stack up on receivers because last year at the end of the year they just ran out of fresh, healthy bodies. Yeah, just capable pass catchers. But yeah, so this year
the offense in the playoffs was a struggle. It was McCown throwing through 2 guys you've never heard of. So.
It was tough to watch. Yeah, so I mean they have that now. But Reagor, I mean, the fact that they picked him over Justin Jefferson in the draft was pretty, telling that they wanted this guy. They weren't going to stray away from their plan going in. I would think that they probably thought Justin Jefferson was going to be gone by that point, so they really focused on Reagor, and then at that point they just wanted to take Reagor and make sure they got him. But I mean this year, Alshon Jeffrey's been in some trade rumors. We'll see if they.
They can even buy him out possibly too, isn't that an option?
He was the rumored source behind, anonymous source, bad mouthing Carson Wentz. So maybe they just want him gone from this team. But with him, and then also if he stays around, he's had some injury problems the last few years. So and same thing with Deshaun Jackson, he's getting up in there in age. He was out basically all of last year.
Right.
And I think they're if not this year, it's next year where Reagor's going to have a huge role in this offense, just being basically in the mold of what Deshaun Jackson was when he was younger. A big play threat. The breakaway speed. They're probably going to use Reagor in return game this year because that's what he did at TCU a lot, and they can save some of their other guys. Miles Sanders was doing that last year, so he's going to just add another weapon. Because the Eagles' offense, they have Ertz and they have Goddard being they're really good over the middle possession type receivers, and they needed some more speed on the outside and down the field. And Reagor definitely helps with that. They also got Marquise Goodwin, who's going to be, playing that same role. So I assume those two guys probably going to be splitting time in this offense.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Marquise Goodwin, he came over from the 49ers. 49ers took a wide receiver in the first round of Brandon Ayuk. Where does he fit in with you, next to, Deebo Samuel and the rest of that offense there, Pettis and whatnot?
Yeah, well, he's another guy that's kind of like a direct replacement for Emmanuel Sanders when they lost him. I mean, this guy is a really athletic type. He can win jump balls, but he's also got the breakaway speed. And last year we saw Deebo Samuel have a lot of success as a rookie in this offense. Yeah. I could see the same thing with Ayuk. Yeah, that's using him as end arounds and rushing. I could see the same thing with Ayuk. Just because of this offense and how it's run, really run heavy and letting, a couple of receivers have some plays that they can, give them a couple snaps where it's focused on them like they did with Samuel. They could do the same thing with Ayuk. The 49ers don't need really good wide receivers,
They're going to run football. So then unless Garoppolo just explodes this year and like shows that he can sit back there and sling it, I kind of agree with you. They wanted like another competent body, back there to go ahead with Samuel because everybody's going to be covering him. So I agree with you there. Running backs were sort of the story of day two. Obviously, we know Clyde Edwards-Helaire went in the first round at the end of the first round there. And a lot of interesting selections made by teams there at the running back position. A lot of teams that we thought maybe had their running back position, at least their starting position, sort of secure, went ahead and drafted a guy there to put in some timeshares. Which running back do you think fell in the best position? Which one do you think fell in the worst position?
I mean, yeah, like the Clyde Edwards-Helaire is definitely is a good spot for him. It's interesting though because they still have Williams, and
right.
You assume that Williams will be the starter to start out, but you can't imagine him. Yeah, you can't imagine keeping that job away from Edwards-Helaire, just the pure talent that he has. And he, I've heard quotes from like Andy Reid and I think their GM saying that Edwards-Helaire is could be better than Brian Westbrook. So, which was a huge praise.
Yeah, I was gonna say you as the Eagles fan.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I knew how good he was just as like a pass catching back too, which is what Edwards-Helaire is. But yeah, I mean, there's that, and then I mean the other guy that he didn't go in the early picks of running back, but Keyshawn Vaughn to Tampa. I mean, we can't ignore that the pass catching running back with the Patriots was James White, and he was very valuable for fantasy. So this could probably be Vaughn in that role because he's more equipped for that kind of role than Ronald Jones. Jones being like a bigger back.
Sure.
And also, I mean, honestly, I think Vaughn is just more talented overall as a running back than Ronald Jones is. So I could see him eventually just taking over the every down role in that offense. And right now, I mean, like fantasy football redrafts or dynasties, he's a pretty good value where Vaughn's being going, outside of those top running backs that maybe went to backfields that are a little muddied, like Jonathan Taylor with Indy, get him and Marlon Mack. You just don't know how it's going to go.
To me, Dobbins probably got the worst of it. I mean, at least on the outset, going to Baltimore where the quarterback is running for 1,200 yards and Mark Ingram's, unless he gets hurt, pretty much there in front of him. It seems, for a guy as talented as Dobbins, he's going to be struggling to get touches because the offense, it doesn't really seem to go that way.
Yeah, I was surprised they actually picked him because, they have Ingram and they also have Gus Edwards and Justice Hill. And I remember when Justice Hill got drafted last year thinking that he would have a good, a bigger role in this Ravens offense, but he just sat behind, Edwards and Ingram all season. I mean, Dobbins is obviously more talented, but the opportunity might not be there if Ingram just is, staying healthy the whole year and being productive. And maybe, for like dynasty or drafts, if you're thinking about like next year, Dobbins could be the guy. And obviously the start we saw last year, the starting running back in this offense is just, really, really attractive for fantasy. But I don't know about this season. Maybe like a later round pick, he could take a flyer though.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now you said you're doing some dynasty drafts right now.
Yeah.
Is Helaire your, number one dynasty pick of the rookies? Like, how are you ranking this class in terms of dynasty?
Yeah, so this is the league that I am doing is a super flex IDP league. So we got all the positions and the super flex aspect of it. So, I had the second overall pick in this first round, and the quarterbacks were definitely going to go off the board, and especially I needed one for like a future. Burrow went number one. I think that's pretty obvious for super flex. And then I had the number two pick. I went Tua. He's this year might be a wash, but I'm kind of building on him being really good for the next 5 years at least. And just hoping that they don't rush him back from this injury and him getting fully healthy. So yeah, I was building on that for next year. But Edwards-Helaire, outside of so Herbert went number 3, and then Edwards-Helaire was the fourth pick, but definitely number 1 overall position players, outside of quarterback.
Right. Yeah, the super flex makes sense to go quarterback. I'm in one of the XM Dynasty leagues that Howard runs. My quarterback position, Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson. Took Lamar, in the Dynasty draft a couple of years ago.
Wow.
That's paid off dividends. It's only a one quarterback league, so I definitely have some trade bait there because my wide receivers are absolutely brutal. It's Odell Beckham is my number one, and then it's Adam Humphries is my number two receiver currently, because given injuries and things that have happened. So, if anybody out there is watching in the Dynasty League, I'm looking to move a QB for some wide receiver thing. Luckily, the Dynasty draft is coming, and this is a draft that is stock full of receiver talent.
Yeah.
So I'll be taking one of those guys.
You'll be set.
Draft time because I'm pretty struggling right now at the wide receiver position. Outside of that, we just had the NFL schedule released. I wrote today an article sort of breaking down the bye weeks. So my question for you is, because there's sort of a back and forth here on how important bye weeks are in your draft strategy. When you're drafting, do you pay attention to make sure you don't have too many guys in one bye week? Or are you like me, where I'm okay with having everybody with a week 10 bye? That means that I have every other week of my full roster. What's your opinion on buys and handcuffs, and how do you approach that with your draft strategy?
Yeah, I think, overall with buys, I think it might matter more for best ball because you want to make sure, if you're only drafting 2 quarterbacks, you want to make sure they have different buys or, defense, all that stuff. But I think, for regular seasonal leagues, it doesn't weigh too much in my thinking. I mean, I think you can't. It might be like just a tiebreaker between players if you're like looking for something to break the tie. But I mean, overall, like if a guy has a week 6 bye compared to a week 13 bye, I don't think that should deter you anymore from picking a guy that you like. So I mean, I would just draft as you would. The one thing I will say though is that kickers, I do pay attention to the buys for kickers, and it might sound odd, but I want a kicker that has a late week bye, like week 12, week 13, because I want to keep him, and if it's a good kicker on a good offense, I want to keep him just and not have to worry about picking up kickers the whole year. And then later in the year, everyone else has already done that ad and dropped a kicker, and you're one of the last ones to do it. So he could probably, last a week on waivers and you pick him right back up. So, I remember last year, I think it was, maybe the year before, I was picking up Harrison Butker because he had a week 12 bye. He was the Chiefs kicker. So, it was kind of a win-win.
I would say the one thing I have a problem with that is that your league is still using kickers. We got to move past the kickers, man. I've definitely had my fair share of losses from a missed extra point. League scoring probably has a lot to do with it too. But I was in a league with kickers where it's like -2 for extra points and missed, and I'm just like, God damn, we're missing out on weeks here because my kicker can't kick a 30-yarder. It's his only job. So what's the point? Why is he here? So for me, I'm trying to petition my leagues consistently at the start of each year to move on from the kicker. I'm like, let's add another bench player. Let's add an extra utility. Like, I don't care.
Extra flex.
Let's remove the kicker, from it. I don't even really like the defense because, those random games. Last year, being a Patriots fan, it worked out for me because I just tried to take the Patriots whenever I could. But I mean, they're putting up 30 points a week. Like, that's not fair. There's no talent behind drafting the defense. Like, it's just complete luck. So, and while the game itself, you can never really predict how things are. The fact that kickers and defenses are still playing big parts in the fantasy for me, I'm ready to move on from that. Just as I much feel like everybody should be in at least a half-point PPR, if nothing else. Try to move on from those standard leagues there. Mentioned bye weeks. We talked about a little bit before we jumped on air about the NFL kind of have front-loaded some weeks. Other weeks, it's not so much. Like week 5, there's only 2 teams on a bye, Lions and Packers. Then you go to week 8 where there's 5 teams on a bye and some big names there. Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson. We talked about DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller, Cortland Sutton. There's just a bunch of talent there in the draft. So, for me, like I said, it's not going to stop me from drafting a guy like DeAndre Hopkins and Juju Smith-Schuster. If I want to go that route at wide receiver, it just means that in the later rounds, I need to sort of identify top depth because that week I'm going to be hurting. You don't want to have too many guys locked up there.
Yeah. The week 8 bye. It's like, and I'm looking at these quarterbacks. I mean, Lamar Jackson, Kyler, Deshaun Watson. They're definitely 3 of the top fantasy quarterbacks. But then you look at there's those other guys, and it might not be a situation where you're worried about drafting, two guys with the same buy, because you could probably get a different capable backup if you're drafting one of those three. But yeah, I mean, those are all like really good offenses in that week 8, and then yeah, week 11, there's a bunch of teams on bye, kind of lower tier offenses, I would say. Bills, Bears, Dolphins, Giants, Jets, and then you get the Niners. But
no one's gonna miss week 11. We'll say that. There's
yeah.
At least at the quarterback position. There are, Saquon Barkley is obviously there at running back. The receivers are depending on which way you look at it. Like, there's obviously some strong talent there. Stephon Diggs, Devontae Parker. I don't know if you're a believer in his season of last year, if you can carry that over to this year with some more Fitzmagic fees under center. Obviously, Allen Robinson, despite his quarterback play, is still managing to put up strong numbers there. And of course, Deebo Samuel, all of those guys out for week 11. But yeah, I mean, just part of the draft strategy. We're going to have some positional articles being posted, whether or not, how to approach those positions on the bye week. Maybe find some, handcuffs for you. So be on the lookout for those as the coming weeks happen. Because again, it's, we're already into our draft, our NFL content here, because we're just looking for something else to do. Something else that is just happening, and I know that you've dipped your toe into, is KBO baseball. We're now, 3 or 4 slates into it. I know James Grande has been doing the playbook here. Greg Jewett's been doing the roundup. I saw you tweet out after day one of some profitable lineups there. How's that going for you?
Yeah, well, so I've been definitely using James Grande's playbooks to help me. But yeah, the first night was just kind of like on my own, doing some research, looking at what other people had put out. And it was really kind of like just a, Hail Mary kind of thing, because there was nothing. I knew nothing about the league beforehand, and finding out that only teams can only have 3 foreign-born players on the roster was interesting. So like those guys are basically the best players on the team, because right. which is funny, because you have like failed minor leaguers that are over there.
That's one of the first things I noticed too when I was reading about like Aaron Alder, homering and then like almost homering twice on like opening day. I'm like, that guy couldn't hit literally anybody at the major league level, and he's coming over here and just cracking home runs. So Jerry Sands was another one. I don't know if you remember Jerry Sands. I was looking at stats from last year. He was like one of the leading RBI men of the league. Like, that was a guy that the Red Sox traded for in like the Adrian Gonzalez deal like 10 years ago. He was like one of the top prospects coming back. Obviously, they did absolutely nothing at the major league level, but a guy that's thriving over in the KBO. So, yeah, you're right. Interesting to see guys like, Dan Straley over there, Mike Wright, like guys are just, producing top end scoring. So I agree with you. It's odd to see those names and like not just have that like dismissive, notion behind them.
Yeah, like Tyler Saladino, Taylor Motter. These guys were like, if we were desperate in DFS one time, like that's who we played. But
$2,000, punt play,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, those were but they're like some kind of elite plays over here. But the pitchers though is real interesting, because these like the American pitchers are some of the best pitchers in the whole league, because I think it's like their delivery and the types of pitches are just different from what the rest of the Korean players throw. So like night one we saw that guy I think Warwick Sawpald threw like a complete game 3-hitter.
And 90 is just like chucking 92-mile-an-hour meatballs down there, but they're not used to that kind of speed.
And thankfully, he was one of the guys that I had in my lineup, so he helped me cash. But like, honestly, after that performance, I looked him up and I was like, wow, he like did not do well at all in the majors, like in the minors. And he comes over to this league and he dominates. So it's definitely going to be an interesting thing to like keep track of. And if depending on how long this MLB season is pushed back, I'll be paying attention to the league. It's early mornings that the games are on, but I know some ESPN is playing on some of them on replay, but in real time you have to wake up to watch them. The first night was 1 a.m. Eastern was like the games, so that was a little more doable, I guess, if you want to stay up. But I've only once so far woken up at 5 a.m. to set lineups and watch the games. So
I was gonna say, how are you, following it? Are you someone that just box score checking at this point, or are you setting the alarm clock, grabbing a coffee and sitting down for some KBO?
Well, so at this point, I guess there's been 4 slates. 2 of them I've been like live, checking lineups and watched like first few innings and then maybe got some sleep. But the other 2 I just kind of like set it and forget it. Didn't play as much, because I knew what I was doing. Risking it without people being in the lineup, and I only got burned once with that. Someone was out of the lineup. It was actually out there when he sat out because he got hit. Sore him. So, but yeah, I mean, the overall though, it's like I think going forward, I probably won't be waking up to watch these games. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I've definitely just been more so of the stat watcher, box score checker.
Yeah.
I haven't dove in there yet, but I mean, like, I've dipped my toe into some CSGO, Counter-Strike.
There you go.
So, I mean, at this point, why not? I know we have Rocket League content coming out shortly as well, so I'll probably check that out. Not sure if you're familiar with Rocket League at all, but it's soccer played with cars.
Yeah, I've played it before.
Okay, yeah. So that looks a little interesting. I find myself, watching some of these things, and my girlfriend's like, "Why are you watching somebody play video game?" I'm like, "It's what I got." You gotta give me something here. So, it's
I told my girlfriend I was waking up early, and she said you're crazy. So
yeah, exactly. So we got to find something else to come to, but we do have at least some real sports. Real sports, I guess. MMA, UFC, 249.
Yeah.
On Saturday, are you a combat sports fan?
For sure, yeah. I've played MMA DFS like in the past, so I'll be, I've already got a lineup in that I'll have to, refine and all that, but looking forward to that because it's, it's gonna be live sports. It's gonna be weird with no fans and all that, but it's something that we can watch.
You're gonna really hear the thuds.
Oh yeah.
When I don't know if Joe Rogan's gonna be calling this fight or not, but he was. I'm not sure if you're a Joe Rogan podcast fan.
I know about it, yeah.
So I listened to his podcast fairly regularly, and he was worried that the fighters would hear his analysis, because usually he's sitting ringside and there's a thing, and he's a very boisterous, reactionary person, and like when he calls these fights and gets really excited and into them, he's like, what if I'm like giving strategy tips away and like the other guy's hearing it? So he was like, it's going to bring a whole new element to his calling game, and he was wondering how they're going to set it up, because if he's been like, oh, he's clearly trying to go for this, and the other fighter is like, oh, this guy's trying to move for this kind of lock. Well, maybe I got to counter it. So you're right. The lack of no fans in general has been weird to watch. The KBO has put in cardboard stand-ins and like virtual reality fans in like the stands. So to see the combat sport thing will be a little bit interesting. For sure. We have NASCAR coming up. Producer right now, Matt Sells, he's getting that content ready for everybody. I think that starts, I want to say next week, the 17th. I may have that correct or wrong. Yep, 17th. So we'll have that coming out. So all the sports are slowly coming back as states reopen. So we may only be, in this, new reality for a little bit longer there, Dan.
Yeah, I'm ready for, I'll probably play some NASCAR DFS because it's something else. Don't know if I'll sit through a whole race though, but it's asking a bit much.
I was the same way before that. Living in the Northeast, I didn't have a lot of exposure really to the NASCAR scene, but following Sells, 2-time NASCAR Writer of the Year winner, kind of he's got me hooked. I again find myself watching some NASCAR, and again it's sort of getting questions like, why are you watching NASCAR? I was like, I don't know. I'm invested into it now. It's interesting. Yes, it's driving in circles, but there's a lot more to it as you kind of get as you get into it. So
hey, I've learned about it because I've been at SiriusXM our studios are right next to the NASCAR studios, and so I know producers that work there, and they will tell me about like different stuff that's happening with the sport, and I'm like, this is all brand new to me, but crazy.
Yeah, no, it certainly is crazy. Dan, before we wrap this up, any final thoughts? Anything you're looking forward to? Anything else you want to tell the family out here of FA Nation?
I'm just ready for sports to be coming back. I know there's been some rumors about like the NBA opening up training and the MLB, rumors about when the MLB season might be coming back, but
the NHL might be doing a 24-team tournament.
I saw that.
Like, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, like all these things. I'm happy the leagues are getting creative and wanting to make this work, at least if it's in a safe way. So I'm ready for it, and I'm glad at least we have a couple things right now with NASCAR, MMA, KBO. But let's get it all back, right?
100%. Let's get it all back there. That wraps it up. Jon Impemba here, Dan Servodidio. Thanks for watching. Have any questions? Want to talk about anything? Hit us up on Twitter. We're just kind of here, so we'll be there for you.